Hello, pilots, and welcome back to Paragliding Banter. We have another special episode this time, and I have a very young pilot with me who has been blazing trails in the flying circuit for quite some time. He's also a friend. He's somebody we've seen grown up in front of us, but now he flies like he's some guru or something, and he loves to fly fast and free and far, far being the more important part of his flying because he loves to do distances. He's someone who's also a competition pilot. He's had a couple of podium places in the leisure and sports class. The latest being in Chameli Open, which was held in Turkey in September. He had the third place in sports class. And did I mention that he's a fast flyer? Yeah, so that's Sunith Rao for you. We are very happy to have Sunith Rao on the podcast and in the house. Sunith, welcome to Paragliding Banter. How do you feel, man?
It's good to be here, Sajid.
Yeah, finally we are getting to do this. Sunith, it's been quite some time. And I've seen you fly and I've seen you in Kamshet, which is our place, the local place that we fly in India. And today we are in Beer and you've been here for quite some time. How many days have you been here now?
I think it's been about 20 days now, yeah.
20 days, and you've been flying every day?
I was busy with students like the first 10 days or so, but yeah, the last 10 days I've been flying, yeah.
When you say students, what does that mean?
So we have a school like Nirvana Adventures in Kamshet, but we brought some of our students here for like some thermaling courses.
Okay.
And so like yeah, I was like busy like watching and supervising that, and like after that I've gotten free. I've been flying properly. Like I was squeezing in some flying like in between the course, but I couldn't be flying the whole day, which I've been doing now. And anyways, the weather wasn't really epic sexy that time.
Yeah, the initial days weren't really good, but we did what we could, right?
Yeah.
We flew wherever, but while we had 2-hour flights, you had 4-hour flights in those shitty conditions. So you said Nirvana.
Yeah.
Nirvana is your school. Where is it based?
In Kamshet. My parents started it about 25 years ago now.
And where is Kamshet?
It's in between Mumbai and Pune.
Okay, so and that's 25 years
Yeah.
now? That's very nice, man. Okay, cool. So as you know, we also have another pilot with us. Vishal Dadlani is in the house with us. Welcome, Vishal.
Thanks, man.
And I thought it would be a nice idea if all three of us can have a chat.
So that it's a chat. Yeah, I mean, it's great.
Yeah, and you're also in Beer.
I'm a huge admirer of Sunith and the fact that he's done so much, and he's one of the few people who actually goes out and competes. You know, like most Indian pilots just fly for leisure, like
Yeah,
me. We fly for fun and so on. So, but you go out there and you put India on the map, which I think is awesome.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
Really.
So I'm very glad to be here.
So Vishal is also a pilot. He's also a celebrity. People who know Vishal will know who I'm talking about. Others can Google Vishal Dadlani and check. But he's such a humble person and a friend, a pilot, and a thermal sharer with us.
Yep.
So let's have a chat on this, Vishal. Finally, we get Sunith to be with us and let's dig his brains a little bit and see what does he do that's so different from many of us. Not only you and me, but so many other competition pilots, and he's always been different. So Sunith, can you tell us like how did you get into paragliding?
Like I said, my parents have a paragliding school, so I was pretty much born into flying. I had my first tandem flight when I was about 3 years old, and I started flying solo when I was about 14.
Wow.
Although like in the initial years being busy with school and college, like my hours used to be quite limited, didn't used to fly that often. But after finishing college, I've been spending most of my time like flying, and I'm not flying also I'm at the site like helping out with the school.
Nice. Vishal, have you been to Nirvana?
I have actually been to Nirvana, but I went there for a shoot many years ago. I haven't actually ever.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done any flying. I mean, we've all flown the same sites in Kamshet, but
but have you seen their place?
Yeah, of course.
It's a beautiful place,
gorgeous.
huh?
It's gorgeous.
It's by the lake.
Yeah, I know.
It's really nice. So right from 3 years you've been flying, you've tasted air.
Pretty much.
Yeah, awesome, man. And what are you doing right now? What do you fly? First of all, what's your age?
26.
All the girls want to know. No? Your girlfriend is going to kill me. Okay.
You want to say hi, Nasha? She's also a pilot and she's right here.
You want to say hi, Nasha?
Hi.
Okay, no girls for him. He's already taken, guys. So, what do you fly right now? And so we know that you started at 14 years to be a solo pilot, and today you're 26.
Yeah.
And so, what are you flying now?
Right now, like I just moved to an Ozone Zeolite GT. It's like a lightweight D2 liner.
Two-liner. You make it sound so casual, man.
I guess it kind of is.
What were you flying before that?
I was flying like a Delta 3, like which is an ENC.
And how long did you fly that?
I think I got that just before COVID, like end of 2019, and like couldn't fly as much as I would normally.
Okay.
So I think I did about 400 hours on it, and then now moved to a Zeolite.
That's fast, man. And what harness do you fly?
It's a Jin Genie Light 3.
Okay. So you're happy with your setup?
Yeah, it's quite good.
Okay. And you always seem to be a person who takes off and quickly climbs and then uses your speed bar.
Yeah.
You seem to be living on your speed bar. Is there a pre-installed speed bar that's always on? Or what's going on, man?
No, but like whenever I'm not thermaling, I like to always be on at least a little bit of bar. Like even like if I don't know where the next thermal is ahead, I'd still be like on 1/3 bar or something. Like I look at the speed bar as like gears in a car, like where I don't keep on shifting gears. It's not like I'm flying on trim or I push full bar. I keep like switching between like 1/3, 2/3, so like full bar, like depending on the situation.
So you're always on bar.
Yeah, pretty much. When I'm not thermaling, I'm on bar. Yeah.
1/3 to full bar.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing you once. I don't know, Vishal, if you've seen him in the air, but I was at Big Face once in Beer, and we both seemed to be at the same time. I mean, we were both returning from Dharamshala, and I was tired, and I see him maybe about 200 meters higher than me, and we both left Big Face at the same time. And I remembered seeing him because he's got a red helmet, and he just zoomed away, man. Actually, from Palampur to Big Face,
Yeah.
and his speed was incredible. He's just like, I was on bar also. I didn't quite understand that. And I kept thinking to myself, this guy's got some rocket booster or something on his glider behind, some propeller or some propellant. But yeah, I don't know how you do that, but it seems to work for you. Your management of speed bar is really nice.
So I have two questions to ask in this context. One, so this speed bar thing, is it that you instinctively, because you've been flying so long,
Yeah.
because it's like when all of us learn a language, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're learning it from infancy. So is it easier for you to find a line that's lifty or faster, or to kind of know what direction to point your wing in to kind of optimize your glide?
I don't think so. I feel like I still often make like wrong decisions about lines. Like I have the same like sources of information for picking a line as everyone else. You just look at the clouds, look at the terrain, the wind, the sun. Like.
But do you even think about it, or do you just like, is it just unconscious now?
I guess it's partly unconscious. It depends on the situation, but like normally, like I don't think too much about lines. I'd like think about like just picking like the shortest, whatever way I think will be the shortest and fastest. If I can like see some clear indicator of a certain line being lifty or less sinky, then I may take it. But like,
And what are those indicators like?
and like I was saying, like mostly it's like the clouds and the terrain. Like when you're higher up and you see a few puffs in some place, even if they're not like a big like cumulus cloud, you see a few small puffs, like that could be an indicator of a liftier line. Or like the terrain, like sometimes like in Beer, like you're always like going into east and west, like facing slopes, like depending on the time of day to look for a climb. But sometimes like there'll be like a small like south facing ridge maybe, and like you can try it like soar your way up those.
So let me just get this right. Let's say so our takeoff is at about, takeoff in Beer,
Yeah.
so that people understand what we're talking about. Beer in India. The takeoff is at about 2,400 meters approximately.
Yeah.
Let's say we take off from there and we climb up to 3,000 meters. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just say in house thermal. Where would you glide and what angle would you take and where would you end up in your glider now?
I'm not really sure.
Straight glide. Let's just talk about. Would it be golf course or would it be big face? Where would
At
you?
3,000, like if at house thermal, I guess like it would be possible to do big face maybe, but like you reach way too low. Like
Maybe damage
probably
would be
be a
a
damage, but like normally I like to skip damage. So what I would do is
Tell me about it. Today
Yeah.
I had that tough time at damage as usual.
I'd probably go straight to golf course and like top up there and go
Okay.
straight to big face in that situation, because if you see like the terrain a bit, like from golf course when you go to dam ridge you have to go a little like north, a little inside,
Right.
and then when you go to big face you come back out a little
Right.
bit, and so that's just an
Waste
extra
of
like
time,
distance.
yeah.
It's a waste of time. So like I prefer in that kind of situation
To skip
like,
damage.
to skip damage, go to golf course and like directly big face. Yeah.
Okay, so when you fly fast, I think one of the things is speed bar.
Yeah.
But I think more than speed bar, because speed bar remains the same for
Yeah.
everyone, right? You know, the gliders
Yeah.
are made for a certain kind of speed and certain enhancement on speed bar. It cannot be different from anybody else. But I think more importantly for you is your decisions, like Vishal rightly said,
Yeah.
that you choose the right lines that adds to your speed
Yeah.
and decision making. I think that's the key to your success also, because reading that day,
Yeah.
I think most pilots are more busy about just let me get on top of this thermal, then I can go. And we waste a lot of time thermaling. And you know, if it's an inversion, we try to break that inversion for 20 minutes. By this time, you're already down to 2 ridges. So I think that's how it works for you. So if you had to teach about lines, what would you say? What would be the main factor that you would look for? Would it be
not
clouds?
just not just lines. To add to that, so here, like where you know the terrain,
Yeah.
right? You can make these decisions in advance. Like I skipped Dam Ridge, but when you don't know the terrain, right? What are the factors that come into play? Like when you're flying in Chameli, for example, do you do like a recce before do you do a recce of the route?
Not
or-
really, but in Chameli it was a weird sight, to be honest. Like whenever I tried reading the terrain, like I was struggling to find where the climbs were. And I think that was applied for most of the pilots. They asked quite a few pilots like what triggers were they looking for, and everyone like was saying like they were unsure looking at thermal triggers. Like what we had to do there is like fly the clouds. We pretty much just had to look at the clouds and like see which ones were active and like accordingly decide or think where thermals would be, stay high, like follow the cloud line was
What for
what
people
worked
who
there.
are listening who don't know, what does which ones are active mean?
So basically, like when a thermal like starts rising, it carries up moisture that condenses, forms a cumulus cloud that
Sure.
everyone knows, and then after like the thermal like dies off, the cloud doesn't immediately disappear. It starts to slowly dissipate. So you need to be able to tell the difference between a cloud that is forming and one that is dissipating, because the forming clouds you'll get lift under them, while the dissipating ones will probably not get
Sink.
anything or you get sink.
Yeah.
So like you need to be able to tell which one is which and like accordingly pick which one you go to.
Right.
Like you might see a massive cloud somewhere, but like it's dissipating and there's no point in
under it
going
lifting
there.
you.
Exactly.
So a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm jumping in because like there
No,
are
no,
lots
just go
of
ahead.
questions
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually have because
Yeah.
as you know, I'm still like struggling and learning. Like on a daily basis, I'm still figuring out what I'm doing in the
Yeah.
sky, right? A lot. So for me, I'm very curious to know like all the stuff that you just said, because you were born into
Yeah.
paragliding. Because I mean, in effect, it was happening all around you, and you've literally, even though you're so young, you've seen the sport grow over the last
Yeah.
15 years or so that you've been active in it, right? Did you ever do courses, or did you just learn from being there, or like is it just like instinctive? Do you read material or something, or do you just like fly from just the fact that you've always flown?
No, like I definitely like did like courses, like I went through like normal like course structure as anyone else would, except like I think one difference for me is I had to do 100 top to bottoms before I was allowed to soar a thermal. And like and I did ground handling also quite a while like before I started like doing top to bottoms. But yeah, and like I wouldn't say everything just comes naturally. Like I do like read up a lot as well. I've read most of the paragliding books, like although I may not remember everything in them, but like I have read like most of them. And like in terms of decision making, sometimes like I might like out of my instinct make a right call, but sometimes I have to think and about what decision to make. And yeah, they aren't always right for sure.
Interesting.
So just continuing on the same thing, we spoke about clouds,
Yeah,
okay, and Vishal spoke about your instinct.
yeah,
Have you developed that instinct, or have you done courses or not? Now let's talk about the fact that when there are no clouds, also you fly well, better
Yeah.
than us in Kamshet. So how do you take those lines there? What do you see when there are no clouds? When we have a clear sky, let's say October onwards in Kamshet, and we fly. I mean November, October we are here.
it's in calm shade. Like again, it's mainly the terrain and the wind, and like in just because I've flown there so much, like some areas I just kind
You
of
just
know
know.
they tend to work.
And Panchkani?
Panchkani, like again read the terrain, but I like, try to stay as high as possible in Panchkani, because once you get low there, it can get quite tricky to figure out where the climbs would be and where the lee side is. Because as you know, like the wind direction keeps changing in Panchkani. It could be high up and it's coming one way, you lose a few hundred meters, and like the wind is coming the other way. So in Panchkani, usually my strategy is to stay high. Like in Beer, like I don't mind getting low and like scratching my way out every now and then. But in Panchkani, like I try to avoid that. I just stay as high as possible. Yeah.
For the listeners, just want to clarify that Kamshet is a local flying site in the western part of India, and Panchgani is also in the same place, but about 200 kilometers away from Kamshit, approximately. And that's what we're talking about. That's where we regularly fly. Whereas Sunith also flies all over the world, be it Turkey or France, or you've been to many other places, right?
Yeah, I've been to quite a few places in
yeah.
Europe, like France, Italy, Spain,
Right.
Macedonia,
So
Slovenia.
we are really speaking about the places that we are familiar with so that we can understand how he thinks. But that's just for the clarification of the listeners now. So in the previous episode that I've recorded with Debu, he also mentioned the same thing, that valley winds is something that's totally different. We are not used to that.
Yeah.
Europe has a lot of valley winds and their flying changes depending on the winds that come in. Would you say that Panchgani also has a similar kind of effect because there are valleys there?
Yeah, for sure.
Not in Kamshit,
I think Panchgani has a similar effect. However, like it's a site where we can be well above the terrain. I'm not sure what the highest ridge is in Panchgani, but if I would take a guess, like the area where we fly at maybe 1600, but in good days we are easily going like 3000, like 3500, or even days 4000. So it's possible to like stay really high over the terrain, like compared to something like the Alps where okay the mountains are big, or like in the back mountains your mountains are big, but like you're on base you're not that much higher on the top. But over here you're just like so much higher on the top of the terrain, you can like stay like above the terrain at all times without like it slowing you down in any way. Like over here on the Alps we always try to stay above the terrain, you'll probably waste a lot of time thermaling extra.
Alright, cool. Okay, let's now shift to the actual art of thermaling, right? And when you want to fly fast, you also want to thermal fast,
Yeah.
right? Do you have a favorite side of turn?
Yeah, definitely the right side.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, left works for me also. I mean, it's strange, right? You
Yeah.
have specific.
Like I can turn left as well, but the issue is I feel like I need to focus much more when I turn
Correct.
left. Like right
So
feels
we-
like autopilot. Yeah.
So we have a favorite side. And in terms of safety, in terms of turbulence, or in terms of big climbs, what have you faced the most? Like, which has been the strongest climb that you've seen or experienced?
Strongest climb.
Approximately, just
on
an
average, you're probably about like 7 or 8, but I've hit peaks over 10 for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In Beer or outside?
In Beer, I think the highest I remember like seeing in my video was 8, but like this time in Chameli, I remember hitting a 10.
10. Okay, and on your two-liner?
Yeah. No, like I was still flying a Delta. in
Delta
Chameli,
that
yeah.
time, yeah. But that's fun, right? When you get used to it. Because most
Yeah,
people
sure.
are worried about thermaling, and the thing that they are worried about or become ineffective in their thermaling is when they hit turbulence
Yeah.
or a strong climb. And most of the people, instead of climbing, would tend to
At
move
10
out.
meters per second, I would go home. It's not even move out. I would land wherever I am and go home.
But that's the whole point of fast
Yeah.
flying, right? If you can get a strong lift, and
Yeah, like
every
as-
book or every instruction we have heard or read, it's always about getting to the core.
Yeah, and as you were saying earlier, like about like flying fast is not only about being on bar. Like
Yeah.
basically the maximum amount of time you spend gliding and like the minimum amount of time you spend thermaling and looking for thermals, the faster you're going to be because you're just spending more time flying in the direction you want to go. So like flying fast is also about just finding the strongest thermals and like being in their core. Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing because it probably is coming to you very unconsciously that you find a thermal, you find the strongest part, you climb fast, and then you glide.
Yeah.
Whereas me, for sure, I still have to go in, check it out several times. So I spend more time finding a thermal and coring it, and also trying to avoid other pilots, which is the case right now here with so many people around. But that is the key, I think. And do you always core, or do you try to do a longer circuit, or do you always what's your style of thermaling?
Like it's quite mixed. I don't really like know if I have a style of thermaling. It depends. Quite situational, I guess. Because like even in terms of the way like people pull brakes in a thermal, like I hear some pilots preferring to like adjust their turns with the inside brake and some with the outside. But in my case, I just use a bit of both. Like I don't really know if I have a preference that way. And also in terms of turning wider or tighter, it like depends completely on the climb. Like probably in stronger and rougher conditions, I prefer turn tight. So like you don't go in out of thermal and you don't feel the turbulence as much. In weaker conditions, probably turn a bit more wide, so you have a flatter turn. But again, it depends completely on the conditions. And also, like if I'm not sure where the core is, I'll make some wider turns to ensure like where the core is. So like if I think I'm not in the strongest part of the lift, I turn wide to help find a better lift. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say that we have a 1.5 meter
Yeah.
thermal. Okay, we enter it. Uh, Usually, what's been taught is you enter it, when you feel the lift,
Yeah.
turn. Some people turn left first and just half a turn left
Yeah.
to get a little bit of area to turn, and then turn right.
I usually do that as well. Yeah.
You do that, so that gives you a big. So you don't go exploring. The moment you hit the core,
Yeah.
you turn.
I'll make a few turns and then we start shifting the turns around a bit and explore a bit. Maybe like first hit the thermal, make a couple of turns to get in it, and then explore a bit to find better lift. And if I find better lift, and like shift myself there and start turning tighter in it. Yeah.
And how wide do you think you would go? You would go till you hear the radio sync, or you just have a basic idea as to
Not till it sings, probably just till it gets weaker. Yeah.
just a little bit more weaker.
Yeah. it
So
depends.
that's a good lesson, man.
But you start turning as soon as you hear the max lift available in that area.
Yeah, like I probably wait a few seconds, but if I wait, if I hit really strong lift, like I might turn faster. Like it depends on the situation. But like normally, like I wait a few seconds, not turn immediately. We turn like immediately, you're most probably just going to fall out.
So, if you were to, I'm talking in terms of people who are now learning to paraglide, okay? And there are a lot of people, there's a lot of fear, actually, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, I have faced fear initially. I got over it, and you probably have gone through it much earlier in your life. That's maybe you are used to it. But I now can core and in stronger and turbulent lift and much more than I was comfortable with earlier. So this comes through practice. This comes through being in the air. There's no other solution for it. So what would you tell your students or your co-pilots and friends who are now getting into the intermediate part of the flying, the intermediate syndrome, right? Because that's when people think that, oh, I can get this, but it sort of spooks them. And when it spooks somebody, be it turbulence, be it strong climbs, they tend to go back many steps.
Yeah.
And then every time the glider shakes or moves, they want to land. I've done that way back in my career, but I've done that. I know what that feels like. What would you suggest? Do you suggest stick with it, go slowly, or just get into it? What would be your thoughts on this?
Everyone progresses at different speeds, and like one way of progression that will not work for everyone. It's on each person to find their own way to progress, which is easier said than done. But one of the worst mistakes someone can make is like looking at the way like someone else progresses. Either maybe that someone's progressing really slow or really fast, and like thinking, yeah, that's the way I should be progressing, and compare with them, because everyone is just going to progress at different speeds, and you just need to find like our own path rather than trying to copy someone else's, or wonder why like is things not working out for us the way it is working for them.
And I think the same goes with your friends' flights. Somebody who does 100 kilometers, not necessarily that you need to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You do it on your own time when it is safe, because safety is of the most it's paramount.
Like in my case, I think I don't think I did like even made it to Dharamshala until like my third or fourth trip to Beer. Like
right.
Yeah, like I remember like the first 2 or 3 times I came to Beer, I can't remember. Like I think the third time I did Dharamshala, but the first 2 times I didn't make it beyond Big Face. Yeah.
Right.
And that point I'd already been flying for quite a while in Kamshed and doing like a few small XCs there already.
So why didn't you make it beyond Big Face? You just didn't feel like going, or you
No, like each time I got to Big Face, I got to at the end, like I just wasn't feeling comfortable like making that transition to Palampur.
Yeah, the Palampur Ridge is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Sorry to say this, but it's Dam Ridge and Palampur Ridge. Those two ones are like you have to go high, and you have to climb on Big Face and golf course to really cover them. Vishal, coming to your flying, we've seen a big progress in your flying this season. And
have you? Thank you, man.
I have really seen you've climbed up to 3,000 on your own without any help, and you've gone to golf course and beyond, and gone back and landed. You've outlanded. You found the landing. All these are big progressions for you. From all that we discussed now, what do you think you've picked up from Sunith, what Sunith has said, and that what do you think you and I or other pilots have not yet done?
I think this, like, not comparing your progress to anyone else's rate of progress is really, really key to everything. This is something, I mean, for whatever, so thankfully, because it's, the Kamship communities, you guys have been so supportive of me learning slowly. And Aram say, do it in your own time or whatever. I find that very comforting. But I don't think everyone has that kind of support system. And I think that's a really important message to kind of put out there, that, I mean, for whatever it's worth, you do things at your own pace. For me, last year, you guys know I busted my knee here. I made a stupid mistake at takeoff, and I fell maybe 10 feet onto my knee and kind of just mashed it. So for me, this year has just been coming back from that. Everything I'm doing this year, I already did last year. But to still be able to do it this year is a huge thing for me. You know what I'm saying? Just to be able to be in the harness that long, to fly the same, not even outflying what I did last year, but just doing the same things that I did last year is a big step forward for me right now.
So obviously people can't compare each other's progress rate because it differs. Like you busted your knee, you understood from that, you didn't run away, you've come back and strong. Some people sort of take the back seat till they can come back.
Which is fair as well.
Which is fair, So everyone's got, so the message is that take it on your own speed. And not
you do what you do, as long as the key is, and for me, the thing is, what I envy most about Sunith's situation is that, I feel like if I had started when I was 14, I'd be a very different pilot. You know what I'm saying? For the simple reason that
we wouldn't be getting the music that we've got, man.
It'll be a whole other kind of music. No, but just in terms of the fluency of the language. You know what I'm saying? Like when you learn a language, like when you learn English, you don't think about framing sentences. You don't think about the structure of the grammar, right? You just speak. I'm assuming that flying must be like that for you. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I keep asking these questions. So are you taking a conscious decision, or is it just something that all your experiences sort of, your mind is doing that calculation without telling you it's doing it? Like that's how I do music.
I guess it depends on a day. Like normally, like when I have my best flights, I guess it's similar to what you're saying. Like my mind is like making these decisions without me really having to think about it. But it doesn't always happen. I guess like it's like, as people say, getting into a flow. I guess it happens to me usually like when I'm like really focused on getting something done, when I have a goal in mind. Like when I was planning to do a 200+ K flight, or like when I'm flying in a com task, and yes, it works. Like my mind like starts working that way sometimes. But not always. Like today, like when I was just flying, like I think I was going on my own thought process. Like I didn't really feel like I was in the flow, but that does happen every now and then. Yes.
So I remember an incident, not an incident, but a situation where Sunith was involved, and the decisions that he took, and it goes exactly with what he's saying. So about a couple of years ago, I think we all went to Hobbiton. We just all decided we'll all fly together. We'll go to Hobbiton. We're going to top land on Hobbiton. And
Hobbiton is the ridge beyond Palanpur.
Yes. And we'll hang there, and then we'll come back. So I think there were about 7 to 8 of us, and we all went to to Hobbiton. And so Hobbiton is on the way to Dharamshala for people who are listening, and it's about 2,600-700 meters on top to land, and it's a very small tight space to land, and it's a thermal trigger. So all of us made attempts to land. Some people landed on their feet, some people forced themselves in. Me along with a couple of others did force our landing in, though we landed, but it was, you cannot really call it a proper touchdown landing. It was more like made it. The only person who made continuous approaches was Sunith. Was the only person who did not land. He made several approaches, and he's one of the better pilots from all those around. Sure. One of those. There were equivalent or better pilots there. I don't want to take their names or hurt their feelings, but Sunith definitely is somebody who's obviously got a lot more experience. But his decision after about, if you remember, I was on the radio and guiding you, and I was explaining to him, come from here, try this, try that, and he was in the air, continuously trying. And at one point he said, guys, I don't want to land. This is not comfortable. I'm going to Dharamshala. And he just left. So he didn't get bothered with the fact that everybody has landed and I'm the only one who's not landed. How will that make me feel? He took his own decision, like, safety first.
Yeah.
I don't think I can land this. This is a thermal trigger, and he saw everybody else sort of
Bouncing
land
around,
hard.
yeah.
No, didn't bounce around, but land hard, a little bit
Yeah.
harder than normal. So yeah, kudos to you, man. That was a good thing for me also to learn from you that take your own decisions.
Yeah, but to be honest, my top landing skills are so quite lacking that time I feel, because I hardly ever land. I'm always spending as much time as I can in the air. So I never end up practicing top landings, but it did make me realize that I needed to practice them a bit, and I did practice them after that.
You took the decision
Yeah.
and accepted the fact that your top landing skills are not that great, and you don't want to force yourself just because out of peer pressure.
Yeah.
And that's what we should not do. Is a good learning.
So what did you do to practice top landing then?
After coming back to Kamshet, I just kept on practicing top landings, and the next season when I came back to Beer, I did try top landings again, around, and I did top land Hobbiton, but next season, not that season, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, would you tell us a little bit about what else do you do other than flying? What's your hobby? Just to know who Sunith the person is.
Off late, not really much, nothing interesting to talk about.
Really.
People who fly generally don't have other hobbies, man.
Exactly.
Right. I totally agree. So we've been making a plan to hit one of the Toto's bar in Bandra.
Okay.
That's not happening. He's just been too busy.
Someday.
Someday, yeah.
I mean, you only mentioned this to me a week ago, and we've been
No,
in Beer
we've
since
been,
then.
before that I've mentioned to you.
But there are bars in Beer also. If you,
Yeah.
if you want to go, you can go. There's one bar. There it is.
So 25 years for Nirvana, that's a big
Yeah.
achievement, man. Well done.
Are you actively teaching as well?
When it's busy, I do help out, yes, but more involved in the management rather than the operations.
Why is that? Considering the fact that you're one of the more notorious pilots, in the sense of, wouldn't it be
I don't know. I feel like teaching basics and teaching advanced stuff is very different. We had a tunneling course. I didn't mind flying with the students. So take some XC guiding is something I don't mind doing. But I feel like teaching the basic stuff is completely different from flying yourself.
So you have to be a lot more patient, and
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Let's touch upon an important subject, which is the safety aspect of
Yeah.
flying, right? And you recently went for an SIV in
Yeah.
Turkey on your new wing. Which one is it?
Zeolite. Yeah.
Zeolite. It's a two-liner.
Yeah.
And you still felt the need that even though you are flown so much, you still wanted to do an SIV, which is a great
Yeah.
thing. Everyone should do it. Nobody's should take that for granted.
Yeah.
You did go, and what did you learn from that? You had a deployment. And
yeah,
what was your learning from that about a two-liner?
So actually a deployment didn't happen on the Zeolite, funny enough. It happened on my Delta. I wanted to do a few stalls on my Delta before stalling the Zeolite to avoid getting the new wing in water.
This was in Oludenis in
Yeah,
Turkey
the
with
Deniz.
jockey.
Yeah, and with the first stall itself, I kind of messed up. I let go of one side, and then it started turning around like a helico. At one point it went kind of parachutal and started turning around as well. And all of that, I either had to slowly go hands up and let the glider fly, catch a dive, or I had to take my hands down and stall it again. But instead, I just kept on moving both my arms around and trying to get back into backfly, which wasn't working at all. And another mistake I did was keeping my feet stretched out in the pod. Even though I had bent them before doing the stall, they came out again.
You automatically,
Yeah.
subconsciously, you got
Exactly,
them out.
yes, subconsciously straightened them out. So I was twisted, ended up in an auto rotation, and I was trying to reach over the lines and stop the auto rotation, but my hands couldn't reach. I was went into my harness, so I was forced to throw a reserve after that. But in terms of learnings, is in a pod harness, definitely remember to keep your legs down. When you're in a situation, maybe if you're in really rough air where you could get a whack, or the moment you get a whack, keep your feet down for sure.
And deploy immediately. Or did you work on it?
No, I was fighting for quite a bit.
Because you had the altitude. You were
Yeah, I
very
had
good.
altitude, so I was trying to get it out. But initially, whatever I did was worsening the situation. And then after that, I tried to reach out lines, but I said, my hands wouldn't reach.
But at all times through all of this, you were aware of where you were altitude-wise?
I initiated it when I was at a lot of height, maybe I was 800 to 1,000 meters over the water. So I knew, even after I threw the reserve, it took me 2 minutes to come down. So I wasn't even thinking about the altitude because I knew I was really high up.
Right. So SIV is important. And what's your reaction? What was the reaction on the zeolite? Was it
So
easier
funny
to
enough,
handle?
yeah. So the main thing I wanted to do was stalls, because collapses we keep on encountering, and not deal between auto rotations and stuff and no reaction. But like a lot of pilots talk about like using like the stall as your reset if you get into a situation, which is something that like I knew I didn't really have, like a tool I didn't have, and like which I wanted to like be able to do. Like even though it's not something you use in a normal situation, it's quite a rare thing. I'd like to know that I have that option, like if I ever need to. So which is why I want to do quite a few stalls. And like after doing several stalls in the Delta, then only I tried in the Zeolite. But actually I found it easier on the Zeolite, because like when you stall the Delta, it has a tendency of wanting to fly again, and like it keeps on like snatching back on the brakes. And so that was like making it like quite difficult to keep it the Delta and stall. But
you need a lot more strength.
Yeah, a lot more strength, and like you have like be quite focused on keeping your hands up, because for a moment like if you're not paying attention, you might like ease off there like on one hand without realizing and end up in a mess. But the Zeolite, like it was a lot straightforward in that sense. The brake pressure was less, and I didn't want to like keep on reflying. So like I found it
once you
easier.
stalled it, it stayed stalled essentially until
Basically.
you wanted to recover it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference between a
Although
C
like but however like in the Zeolite, like one thing to keep in mind is you can't like do like a normal full stall. Like I didn't try it myself. You have to do a 2-stage stall, otherwise it will like end up in a mess very easily. And like but like I was saying, the 2-stage stalls I found them easier on the Zeolite just because of lesser pressure on the brakes.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing even about Scala.
Yeah.
And people who are flying two-liners. In fact, we were on the landing. I don't know if you were there, Vishal. We were talking to a guy who was flying Scala, and we asked him a lot of questions about how it behaves, and he says, I prefer it over the 3-liner.
Yeah, I can say the same with the Zeolite. Basically, like, I can say on a 2-liner, like as long as you give the right input at the right time, give the necessary inputs, it will behave better on a 3-liner. It's just if you don't give the right input when necessary, or give it the wrong input at the wrong time, like it could end up in a much bigger a mess. Yeah.
And how do you think is the difference in glide between your Delta 3 and the Zeolite that you?
It's hard to say. I think in a nil wind or tailwind it'll be similar, but in a strong headwind, it's very evidently better. Yeah.
Zeolite.
Yeah, and a strong headwind, the Zeolite is much
Keeps
better.
climbing.
Yeah.
That's
And also the benefit is that on bar it's more stable. It like shakes less, and like because of being a 2-liner, you have that much more control in the bees and like to keep it like overhead. Yeah.
awesome. Cool, man. That was really informative. Is there anything else that you want to tell our listeners about anything about your school or about where to find you in case they want to ask some questions?
Actually, I just remembered someone had asked a question to me earlier, which I think I can share here as well. Like they asked, like, how do you like fly for like such long durations without getting tired? So, like my answer to that would be is one of the main reasons you get tired is dehydration. So, to make sure to drink enough water, and like not just during the flight, but even like before the flight, like in the morning and the previous day, like being hydrated also makes a difference. Like if you're dehydrated yesterday and if you drank enough water today, you still might get dehydrated quite quickly is what I feel.
Especially in the cold.
Yeah, exactly. And like high altitude with all the wind you keep feeling throughout the flight. So like one important thing is to be hydrated. And another thing with long flights is like the more you get comfortable with climbing and gliding, the less mental bandwidth you need to use to be performing them, and so you'll be getting less tired like during a flight as well. Like someone who's like thermaling for the first time will probably get really tired after like 20 minutes of thermaling also, because they're like constantly focusing on every little thing. But like after thermaling a lot, because you're like not really thinking much about it, you don't get as tired either.
I think that finally explains the reason why you eat so much. Because people who know Sunith know that he can finish everybody's food on the table and wants more. Because probably you're using so much of energy flying, you're always hungry. Vishal, is there anything you want to ask Sunith, or say anything about Sunith before we wind up?
For whatever it's worth, like I said, Sunith is someone who should, inspire a lot of people. I feel like for whatever, I'm glad this is getting out. Even like your podium finish in Chameli, for whatever it's worth, I feel like it really should have been put out
more, right? Yeah.
Because it's
I agree,
inspiring
man.
to bring more people into the sport. When a young person is making all these achievements.
Yeah, man, you're right. It's not normally, celebrated as much as it should be. It's only within the close friend circuit, not even the pilot group.
Correct.
Just the close friend circuit, we are proud of this.
That's because all the other schools were like, no, but he's with that school, and
it should not be.
Bullshit that goes with the scene. But the truth of the matter is,
We are all
in any
pilots.
sport,
Yeah.
if someone is out there, on the podium at a global event, it should be huge. So congratulations, thank you for doing that, for representing all of us.
And putting India on the map, man.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That at such a young age, and it's not been recognized. We need to get more of this out. You're right.
So hopefully this podcast is the start
Yes,
of that. Yeah.
start of that. Shunith, I really appreciate you being here and talking to us. And although we have spoken over lunches and breakfast on about flying, but not so much in depth, and I really see a very strong, rational, and a thoughtful mind in you, in the way you approach things, and very mature. Let me say that. The way you approach things in terms of flying, and I really wish that you'll get many more podiums and first places in the future, and we will all celebrate that, man, and we should all do it more. So thank you for being here. Anything else you want to say before we end up?
I think I've said most of the things I could have said, but yeah, it was nice being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice
It
talking
was
to
our
Sajid.
pleasure. And Vishal, thank you so much for being
My
on
pleasure.
the show and taking the time out, man. Really appreciate this. And
When you turn that off, we're still going to be talking about flying.
that's true.
Okay.
All right. On that note, thank you everyone for listening in. This was Sunith, who is a young flyer, young pilot, and who flies fast. And we've learned a lot of things from him today. And I think the key thing is not only being on the speed bar, but also finding the right lines, reading the weather accurately, looking at the clouds, looking at the lifty lines,
Terrain.
and the terrain, and also thermaling faster so that you don't waste too much time at one spot. So it was really interesting. And thank you very much. And I will see you all on the next episode on Paragliding Banter. Thank you and bye-bye.